You're floating in the water, enjoying the natural beauty. The gentle motion of the water lulls you into a state of calm. Suddenly, something brushes your leg. Then it latches on with powerful suckers. The last thing you see as you are dragged beneath the water is a beautiful woman's face. Later, a body washes up on shore, without a brain. This is the legend of the freshwater octopus of Africa, if you can even call such a creature an octopus. It feels like it's been forever since I've done one of these videos. I hope everyone's ready to learn about this deadly and obscure cryptid. But first, don't forget to hit the like and sub buttons before they squeeze your brains out. Most people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, so if you like my content, please subscribe. It really helps the channel out. This is a part of a series where I cover every aquatic fairy on Earth. Specifically, this is the Freshwater Merfolk of Africa playlist. I've created a characterization system that I'm putting every fairy into. Eventually, the full list will be available on a website. There are 6 categories: animal fairies, plant fairies, heavenly fairies, monstrous fairies, ghostly fairies, and animal hybrid fairies. Freshwater octopi are animal hybrid fairies, specifically freshwater. The other subcategories are avian, hooved, reptilian, insect, ursine, canine, primate, pygmy, simian, furred freshwater, and merfolk. I'm getting most of my information on freshwater octopi from Encyclopedia of Cryptozoology's article on them, where they have quotes from the legendary French cryptozoologist Bernard Heuvelmans, translated into English from their original French. Freshwater octopi are reported in Congo and Benin. French explorer Raymond Conrad de Montresor claimed that freshwater octopi lived in the Mobomu River in Congo. An extraordinary animal that has the shape of a fish, the head of a woman, and tentacles of a kind, with which it sucks the blood, if those it can seize. It then squeezes out the brains and abandons the rest of the body. And in Congo's Yule River, there are reports of octopi called megwe or kalima that feed on their victims' brains by inserting the points of their tentacles in the victim's nostrils. Interestingly, they generally keep their victims for 15 hours, then let the body float away. They're exclusively interested in the brains. Another French explorer, Charles Alexandre de Aulnay, reported that a bellowing octopus-like creature lived in the Niger River, which flows along the border of Benin. Another fascinating report identifies the creature as manguanita and describes a humanoid creature with reddish fur that can come up to the surface. It lays on rocks and resembles a human, thus luring in its victims. Another report calls the freshwater octopus the kalima and describes it as evil, always referred to with the definitive article, implying a singular being, serpent-like, red in color like manguanita, and it lives in very deep water, is strong enough to capsize a canoe, and never keeps its victims for more than one night. It is important to note, however, that just because people believed that it was evil, or that it was a singular being, it doesn't mean that is the truth. Most known animals have mythological associations. For instance, in the werewolf video I'm releasing on Halloween, I go over a number of wolf myths. That doesn't mean that wolves aren't real. There are several other nearby cryptids and mythological creatures with similar traits who may be related or be the same as the freshwater octopus. Migas are squid-like creatures from Central African mythology. They have human-like features such as legs, and they drink human blood. Some cryptozoologists consider them to be the same creature as the freshwater octopus. And in Congo, we have Mamba Mutu, who drinks the blood of children. As you can see, they don't look anything like octopi, but I bring them up because of their geographic proximity and the blood drinking. In South African lore, another brain sucker pops up, Mamlambo. She is serpentine, which, and I might be reaching here, could be similar to an octopus's tentacles. So it kind of seems like there might be a brain and or blood-draining creature haunting Africa's waters. Are they all the same species, or a family of species? I wonder. Some other thoughts. Life is in the blood and consciousness in the brain. Is this creature actually draining life force, like an energy vampire? Additionally, could victims of this cryptid simply have drowned or been drowned by something? Bodies bloat in water, similar to some victims' enlarged nostrils where brains were allegedly sucked out. And skin eventually turns white once it's been in the water long enough and could be mistaken for exsanguination. But is there any real-world precedent for brain and or blood sucking? Some animals eat brains, but I couldn't find any that suck brains out of the victims' bodies. Obviously there are blood-sucking animals, but for the purposes of this video, I think the creatures that will be most relevant will be leeches and sea lampreys. There's a lot of conflicting information in all these myths and sightings, but for me, the thing that ties it all together and gives me an idea about what this creature could look like is actually another cryptid, Octosquatch. Seen in the summer of 1961 in the Basque Mountains of Spain, Octosquatch is a 3 to 4 foot tall hairy octopus with a shaggy coat of rust-colored hair that walks on its tentacles. Remember that the Central African Migas is said to be an octopus but also have legs. One freshwater octopus report claimed that they could be mistaken for humans, and 2 reports described them as reddish. As far-fetched as it sounds, perhaps this cryptid is a furred humanoid octopus who can travel on land as well as water. Although I don't actually think they're furry. See, octopus skin is really unique. Not only can they change their skin's color, they can also change their texture, creating intricate ridges and bumps that can mimic many surfaces, including fur. On screen are some pictures of octopi that I think could be mistaken as furry. Speculative biology time. I'm going to craft a hypothetical creature that is part octopus, part biped. I've named this cryptid Centralis rubrum, referring to its Central African homeland and red coloration. More on the scientific classification later on in the video. Centralis rubrum can contort its body and tentacles into a humanoid shape, using 2 tentacles for each arm and leg. The skin texture on the mantle mimics a person's long hair, so that when the creature sits on a rock, from behind it appears as a topless woman with long rust-colored hair. In particular, the ridges are meant to mimic the hairstyles of the Congo tribe. That's how I've chosen to depict the freshwater octopus here. We know how they hunt, luring their prey by posing as humans. After they've gotten their prey, they drag them under the water, injecting them with venom, similar to that of real-world octopus species, and consuming them. But how do they come out of the water? As it turns out, octopi can survive out of water for 30 to 60 minutes, enabling them to move from pool to pool when the tide goes out. Of course, humans are not common prey. They mostly eat fish and other river creatures. I considered having them drain their prey of blood like lampreys, but ultimately decided against it, mostly because no octopus species drain their prey of blood. What do y'all think though? Let me know in the comments if you think that freshwater octopi can drain blood or even brains. Perhaps the venom they inject causes them to bleed out of their orifices or liquefies their brains so they can be sucked out. The golden lancet snake has venom that breaks apart red blood cells, causing hemorrhaging, and is powerful enough to melt skin, so perhaps their venom could be like that. Moving on from that gross topic, let's talk about their life cycle. Freshwater octopi live in rivers and probably also lakes in Congo and Benin. This is where their lives begin. Freshwater octopi hatch from eggs laid by their mothers in hidden crevices underwater. They hatch as paralarvae and are planktonic. They likely develop and hatch fairly quickly due to the warm waters that they live in, similar to real-life octopi. Then they become subadults. They eat a lot at this time, growing to their adult size. Freshwater octopi are the size of the average adult human, enabling them to pose as them. Known octopus species range from a few inches across to 20 feet long, so a species that's 5 to 6 feet long is totally plausible. Just how smart are they though? Most of the aquatic fairies I've covered so far I've assumed to potentially have human-level intelligence. This could still be true in this case, although the myths do not really support this. It's also important to note that octopi are highly intelligent, and Centralis rubrum is no doubt very smart as well. They would have to be in order to pose as humans to hunt them. Beyond that, I don't really know how intelligent they are, but I would love to find out. Regardless, when they reach adulthood, it's time to reproduce, a process that leads to their demise. Like all octopi species, after reproduction, they rapidly age and die. It's honestly really sad. The mothers stay by the eggs protecting them, dying around the time they hatch. We know octopi are very smart. What are they thinking about during this? Are they sad knowing that they're dying and they'll never see their young grow up? If freshwater octopi are as intelligent as humans, this would make building culture and society difficult, and by necessity very different from any human society, as there would be no parents or elders to teach and pass on knowledge and wisdom. Adults who haven't had sex would likely have to take on most roles in society, including the rearing of young. Would reproduction be controlled by the government, possibly chosen by lottery to ensure the species continued? These are all wild speculations, but it is interesting to think about, especially for anyone wanting to create a freshwater octopus character. I'm not saying I'm doing that, but I might someday, you never know. A couple of other things I want to touch on. One report claims freshwater octopi make a bellowing sound. In real life, octopi do not make any vocalizations. Although they could be the exception, I think that Centralis rubrum probably do not make a bellowing call. This is perhaps a misidentification. Many reports give the freshwater octopus the strength to upend canoes. Perhaps they are stronger than their size would suggest, or exceptionally large members of their species are the source of these claims. Lastly, let's talk about scientific classification. I put them in the same phylum, class, and order as the octopus, but create a new suborder, family, genus, and species. Octopus, cryptids, and fairies are going to keep coming up around the world, so I created the suborder Homo octopata, meaning man-octopus. The family is pseudo-homo, fake man, for man-octopus cryptids that quote-unquote fake their human-like traits with their tentacles and shape-shifting abilities. So the next time you're swimming, watch out for the freshwater octopus.